Some deliveries take you to houses, some take you to people, but once in a while, a delivery takes you somewhere that shouldn't exist at all, and when you realize the place you're visiting knows you're coming, it's already too late. I'm 22 now, finishing my last year at a university in Northern Virginia, but this happened when I was home for winter break. My hometown is a small spread out area in western Massachusetts, farmland, old houses, and long roads that vanish into forest. The kind of place where the nearest grocery store is a 15-minute drive and a late-night coffee run is a luxury DC isn't exactly gentle either. The neighborhood my campus sits near is the sort where cops hanging around makes you feel safer, not anxious. I've seen enough strange behavior out there that I thought nothing could really shake me anymore. I should also make it clear, I'm not some fragile twig who scares easily. I'm a little over 6 feet tall, around 235 pounds, heavy set but muscular, the kind of build you get from years of high school sports, followed by late night drinking and fried food. I chain smoke too much, I eat whatever I want, and I definitely enjoy a drink more often than I should. My major is finance, and last semester I worked as a part-time assistant for a mid-level marketing firm dealing with spreadsheets and invoices. They paid me $22 an hour, which sounds great until you remember how brutal tuition is these days. So at night, after office hours ended, I delivered food for a small pizza shop near the coast. Cheap place, huge delivery radius, always short-staffed. The shop sat about 10 minutes from the shoreline, and my house was another 15 minutes inland from that. We even delivered past my place, way out into back roads where GPS signals flickered and houses sat acres apart. This all happened one night around 10:20 p.m. During a slow shift, I was in the back folding boxes, wishing for time to pass faster, when the girl at the counter, she couldn't have been older than 17, walked in holding a ticket. She looked off, nervous. She told me the caller had sounded strange on the phone, like he was talking through something. Cloth, hands, maybe a fan. She said the voice gurgled, like water stuck in a drain. Instantly my mind went to my college interactions with people on heavy substances, but out here in the countryside, it's more common to run into people abusing prescription pills or alcohol rather than anything else. I shrugged it off until I looked at the order. It was bizarre. A large pizza overloaded with almost every topping we had. Anchovies, beef, ham, sausage, pepperoni, mushrooms, olives, onions, bacon, extra cheese. Nearly $18 in add-ons alone. I asked her if she was sure about the order. She bit her lip and said, "I think so. I couldn't understand most of what he said. I just clicked the toppings he repeated the most." Fair enough. She was young and probably distracted, so I decided to call the customer back and confirm. I dialed the number. It rang and kept ringing 15, 20, 30 times. No answer. I hung up, tried again. This time it went straight to a generic message. "The number you are trying to reach has not set up a voicemail box yet. Goodbye." My manager shrugged and said, "Just make it like he ordered. If he complains, we comp it." Fine. I went out for another delivery and killed about 25 minutes. By the time I got back, I prayed someone else had taken the weird order. No such luck. It was my turn again. So I grabbed the pizza, got in my old Honda, and punched the address into maps. It took me to a tiny side road off an old highway, bordering a massive forest preserve, locals called Hollow Pines Reserve. Hundreds of acres of untouched woods that were pitch black by nightfall. The house was 28 minutes away, practically our maximum range. I blasted some electronic music, turned up the bass, and hit the road. Driving deep into rural woods at night is something you can't fully describe unless you've done it. Winter makes everything worse. No bugs, no wind, just stillness. The trees don't even creak. The silence presses into you, like foam sealing a room. When I reached the street, it was lined with a handful of old houses spaced ridiculously far apart, 3-4 acres between each one. The house numbers jumped around, 980, then nothing for a quarter mile, then 1020. The address was 1006, except it didn't exist. The numbers skipped right over it. Great. I pulled to the side of the road, frustrated, and tried calling again. The phone rang, then abruptly stopped. Someone had picked up, but no one spoke. Instead, a distorted humming, mechanical, vibrating, grew louder and louder through my car speakers until I slammed the call shut, terrified it would blow my subwoofer. As I lowered the window to clear the windshield fog, a wave of stench hit me so hard I gagged. Rot, sour, moist rot. Like a dumpster behind a butcher shop I shifted into first and crept forward, desperate to escape the smell. Ahead, at the base of a long driveway, a single lamppost glowed beside a weathered wooden post with the number 1010 painted on it. Then someone stepped out from the darkness into the halo of the light. I actually exhaled, relieved. A person. Finally. I pulled closer and parked about 10 feet away. The figure was massive, easily taller than me, wrapped in a huge, oversized black coat that draped over him like a tarp. He had no shoes on, despite the freezing weather, and his jeans were torn and stained. I got out with the pizza, apologizing for the wait, for the calls, for the mix-up. He didn't answer. He didn't blink. He just watched me. When I finally dared to look directly at his face, my stomach clenched. His eyes, they didn't reflect the lamplight at all. They looked hollow, like deep pits or tunnels instead of eyes. His head rocked side to side in these unnatural half jerks, like a loose hinge being pushed but never closing smoothly. 10 seconds passed, then 20. He still didn't speak. The smell around him was unbearable now. Wet copper, decay. My instincts were screaming. Trying not to make it obvious, I raised my phone slightly on the roof of the car so I could see the screen while keeping an eye on him. I went to my recent calls and tapped his number again. The phone rang. Not from him, not from the house, from the woods, far behind him. My blood froze. A faint ringtone drifted from the forest, distant but unmistakable. He hadn't brought the phone to the driveway. Something else was in those woods. I whispered, voice cracking, "Sir, I think you dropped your phone out there?" Still bobbing, still silent, he tilted his head further and let out a low, wet grunt, then a higher one, like two mismatched sounds forced through a stuck throat. I was seconds from bolting back into my car when he finally spoke, but the way he spoke, "That phone's not mine." The pause between "phone's not" and "mine" was long enough to make my stomach turn. The first half came out slurred together. The last word jumped an octave. I backed up instinctively. He stopped bobbing. His empty eyes locked onto me. Then he whispered again. "It was his." My breath caught. "What? Whose?" I managed another jerk forward, fast, stiff, like tendons snapping tight. Closer now. The phone was his. I stumbled back, hands shaking so violently I dropped the pizza box onto the car roof. I shouted, "Man, I swear, I'll call the cops. Please, just take the food and let me leave." His mouth curled slowly into a smile, but not a human smile, too wide, too flat. Then, without moving his lips, a new voice, a woman's voice, echoed out of him. "Go away, stop following me, I will call the police." My entire body turned to ice. In one sudden jolt, like his whole torso spasmed, the thing lunged forward, grabbed the pizza and dropped 2 coins, quarters, onto the roof of my car. The coins were coated in something thick and dark that smeared across the metal like syrup. I didn't wait another second. I dove into the driver's seat, half on top of the door, engine screaming as I tore down the road. I didn't even shut the door fully until I was half a mile away. Panicked, I turned around. Better to go back towards civilization than deeper into the woods. I floored it past the driveway. He was gone. I reached the end of the road, stopped at a sign, looked right, then left. His face was right there, inches from my window. I don't remember screaming, but I know I did. I floored it all the way back to the shop, pulled into the lot, shaking so violently I could barely shift gears. I lit a cigarette with trembling hands, even though I never smoked on shift. When I walked inside, pale and sweating, the counter girl called out, "Hey, that guy from Hollow Pines called back. He said you forgot some food, but he only ordered a pizza, right? He wants you to go back." I broke down crying. When I finally got the strength to look at my phone, it was wedged between the seat and the door, cracked. 14 missed calls from his number. The voicemails were empty except the last one. Ragged breathing, low grunts, and something moving over leaves. I forced myself outside to inspect the roof. The quarters were stuck in some sticky dark substance that smelled metallic, coppery. I gagged and vomited right there in the lot. A smear of that same fluid ran from the front wheel well to the driver's door handle. It had tried the door, while I sat there at the stop sign. The next morning, I gave the number to my cousin, a police officer in a neighboring county. He said it was an unregistered prepaid phone bought with cash, untraceable. It hasn't been turned back on since. These days, I sleep with the hallway light on, and I don't take rural deliveries anymore. I can't stand the sound of a phone ringing in the woods. At 24 years old, wandering through the Pinecrest Highlands of northern Montana, deep inside a stretch of forest most folks avoided once the sun dipped low, I was finally trying out some newly acquired gear, stuff I'd spent half a year saving for. A fresh pair of reinforced hiking boots, a multi-pocket tactical vest, and a surplus respiratory mask rated for military exercises. Honestly, stepping into those woods with all that equipment felt like opening gifts on some personal holiday. I'd been itching to field test a few prototypes I'd built myself. I had my compact sidearm, nothing impressive against anything huge, but enough to stop a venomous snake, a feral dog, or a mountain cat in a bad mood. I had extra loaders, 2 custom mags I'd tinkered with for months, and a handful of quick strip clips. A few rolled up paper targets dangled from elastic loops on my vest. My pack carried a lean but solid set of survival items, a compass, a marked topo map, a foldable thermal sheet, a spare set of clothes, 3 MRE pouches, a metal canteen, and my water bladder. Pretty much everything short of a bunker. I wasn't preparing for any one danger, more like every possible one, and honestly, I was enjoying myself. I trekked between the pines, tested the mask's field of view, practiced drawing the mags from different angles, and generally acted like a kid with too much enthusiasm and no supervision. Eventually, I drifted toward a shallow, rocky drainage channel that only filled during heavy spring runoff. Since it was late summer, fading into early autumn, the whole stretch was bone dry, perfect for practicing the more intense stuff without worrying about slipping into mud. Frankly, my sweat was a bigger threat to my gear than any puddle I checked my firearm's safety 3 times. Habit drilled into me, then started a sequence of low slides, uphill bursts, and improvised guerrilla exercises along the creek bed. By the second drill, my lungs were burning. By the third, I was gasping like someone had stolen half the air from Montana. Bent over, hands on my knees, I tried to catch my breath in the dusty ditch. Once my vision stopped pulsing, I figured I should check my map and orient myself before heading home. That's when the smell drifted in. At first I assumed it was me. After all, nothing smells good after sweating inside a mask and vest. But the odor changed fast. What started as the sharp bite of body sweat shifted into something far fouler, something rotten. The stench carried thick undertones of decay, an animal musk that clung to the air, a sour garbage reek layered with a heavy old onion stench. It was like the forest exhaled a breath that had been trapped underground for a century. I snapped into alert mode instantly. In a quick motion, I slipped a focus tab from my pouch and swallowed it dry. I drew one of my custom mags from the vest and inspected it, wanting zero risk of a jam if things went south, but the smell, God, the smell hit like a punch. It was so powerful I felt my stomach lurch. I almost coughed the pill right back up. Whatever was producing that odor wasn't just present, it was moving, closing in, drifting through the trees toward me. To hell with it. I yanked my mask back up over my face. It helped. A little. The seals weren't perfect, and the stink still seeped through the edges. Warm and sickening, I started moving. Slow steps, controlled breathing, trying not to make noise. The creek walls sloped up on both sides, but one end had a gentler climb. I headed that way, every footstep deliberate. I kept listening for anything unnatural above me. Then I heard it. A shuffle, a grunt, a wet, sloppy sound, like something rooting around in leaves with no coordination. Heavy breaths, snuffling, the faint impact of weight against bark, and all of it woven together with that horrendous smell. My mind jumped to the only logical conclusion: a huge animal, probably a bear, a very large one, and considering how strong the odor was, Possibly something worse. Let me explain something about the oversized predators in these mountains, something straight out of my uncle's mouth. The man had lived in these highlands for over 6 decades, and only 2 things had ever rattled him: raising stubborn kids and the massive dun bears, as he called them. He said the local grey bears were nearly wiped out during the mid-1900s. To fix the population collapse, a combination of regional wildlife groups supposedly released several dozen bears back into the area. Official reports claimed they were all standard greys, nothing genetically unusual. My uncle insisted that was complete fiction. According to him, a portion of those released animals weren't standard greys at all. They were larger, cross-region browns shipped from out of state. They mixed with the few surviving locals and the reintroduced greys. The offspring inherited what he called vigored blood, hybrid strength, hybrid size, hybrid aggression. And worse, he once told me, they breed like wildfire. When I doubted him, he didn't argue. He simply walked into the cabin, returned with a battered folder labeled DB. He laid out a stack of faded photos. Blurry, yes, but unmistakably huge creatures. Black and brown hulks rummaging through trash heaps, lurking behind tree lines, shouldering past old sheds. Then he made me look outside at our own clothesline, stretched between posts, 5 feet off the ground. In one of the photos, the creature's shoulder almost reached that same height, even though it stood several yards farther from the camera. When I finally worked up the nerve to ask my mom about a strange childhood memory that had lingered in the back of my mind, I had no idea that the innocent little scene I remembered was only a tiny fragment of something far darker, something that every adult in my family had quietly carried for decades. Back when I was around 8, late autumn of '94, right around our family's big November get-together, we drove clear across the state to stay overnight at my mom's brother and sister-in-law's place. The kind of trip we made often because my cousins and I were glued together whenever holidays rolled around. I remembered only the cheerful parts, running around with my cousins until the grown-ups called us to the table, sitting down with plates piled high, and then hearing my mom and aunt cheerfully tell us we'd be having our supper upstairs in the bedrooms instead of the dining room, which I resisted until my mom bribed us by promising we could watch the Mighty Ducks on the giant TV in the parents' room if we ate upstairs. And that was all the convincing any kid needed, so within seconds we were bouncing onto the big bed as my mom spread out a blanket picnic style and set all our plates down while she supervised us, escorting us to the bathroom when necessary and refusing to let any of us go back downstairs for even a minute, insisting she'd bring up whatever we asked for. In my memory, it had been an amazing holiday. Dessert in bed, movies until we dozed off, and waking up early to pile back in the car the next morning. And for years, that was the entire story in my head. Something fun and simple that we tried to repeat in later years, but were told not this time without explanation. It wasn't until last year when I casually asked my dad why that one Thanksgiving had been the only time we were allowed the upstairs movie night treatment that I saw a look cross his face I'd never seen before. Not one of his usual dad expressions, but something tight and scared, the kind that makes your stomach drop before you even hear the answer. After a long, heavy sigh and a warning not to tell my mom he told me, he explained the version the adults lived through. Everything had been normal until, midway through dinner, the phone rang and my uncle answered to hear a man asking for my aunt. She took the call, returned pale and silent, brushed off my uncle's questions, and before anyone could press her further, headlights rolled slowly up their driveway. No one was expecting company, and while surprise visitors weren't unheard of on holidays, my aunt reacted like she was seeing the gates of hell open. My dad said the color drained from her face all at once, and when my uncle moved to check who it was, she seized his arm and whispered, "Get your gun," in this terrified, urgent voice that froze everyone at the table. My mom and dad tried to demand answers, but there was no time for explanations. My aunt insisted that the whole house might be in danger, so my mom immediately gathered us kids from the little table beside the adults and hurried us upstairs, keeping us distracted while my uncle, armed and confused, and my dad, equally unsure, went out to confront whoever had pulled into the drive. My dad later told me that the stranger's headlights were so bright that at first they couldn't see anything except a blinding glare until they stepped off the porch and the motion light snapped on, revealing a man standing behind his open trunk. My uncle shouted for him to identify himself, and the guy staggered into view holding a firearm, prompting my aunt to shriek and bolt back inside. My dad, terrified but unwilling to let someone storm upstairs where we were, braced himself to tackle the man if he shot my uncle. But before the situation turned fatal, my dad noticed the guy could barely stand. He was wildly intoxicated, fumbling with the gun like he didn't understand how it worked, giving my uncle just enough time to close the distance and knock him out cold. My dad disarmed him, and the two men held the stranger down until deputies arrived. And through all of this, my cousins and I lay on the bedroom floor blissfully ignorant of the chaos below. After we kids were asleep, my aunt finally revealed to my parents and uncle the secret she had kept buried for more than a decade. Her first marriage, not to a physically abusive man, but to one who had slowly and cleverly isolated her, cutting off her access to money, removing the phone, tossing out food item by item, and finally abandoning her overnight until she begged strangers for change to call my grandmother for rescue. She had sworn my grandmother never to tell anyone, moved states away afterward, met my uncle, rebuilt her life, and assumed her ex was long gone, maybe even dead. But he had tracked her down after 10 silent years, driven to her house with a gun and 2 full cans of gasoline, intending, according to what investigators told them later, to shoot everyone inside and then burn the place down. He went to prison, though not long enough for anyone's liking, and while a restraining order now ensures he'll be re-imprisoned if he ever returns to that town, the fact that he is still alive, now somewhere around his 70s, just like my parents and aunt, leaves a razor-thin thread of dread hanging over everything. Everyone hopes age alone will keep him away, but to me it feels less like certainty and more like a fragile wish, like a blade suspended above us that hasn't fallen yet, and the chilling fear that my aunt's nightmare, which has already resurfaced twice, won't truly be over until the day her ex draws his final breath. Because God help us all if it ends with anyone else losing their life instead of him.